I have long witch nails that I haven't quite figured out how to use. So it sounds pretty though.
You know what that reminds me of?
What? Dolly Parton?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I was like, how are we going to bring up Dolly in this recording?
Wait. I have no rhythm.
That sounds just like the song 9 to 5 from the movie 9 to 5 starring Dolly and Jane.
I'm playing acrylic nails. Just kidding, they're gel. At breakfast today, a woman was wearing a Dolly Parton t-shirt, and we were like way into our conversation that I didn't want to stop and compliment her, but I noticed.
I'm really sad that you didn't point it out to me.
She was wearing a Dolly Parton t-shirt, and the man across from us was wearing a Nevertheless She Persisted. He was like an older man. He was so cute. He was wearing a hat. It was pretty cute.
Yes. That's cool.
Good for him. Good for him.
That's cool. Yeah, I was like, the other day, I was thinking to myself, how are we going to bring up Dolly Parton in this next recording? Because I'm just not sure how she's going to fit in.
It happens naturally.
It's
organic.
Always comes up.
Always comes up. But that's not just when we record.
No. We just love Dolly.
Oh, God, I love her so much.
Why don't we have a Dolly Parton podcast?
I feel like there are people that we bring up often. Mm-hmm. Dolly Parton, Diego Luna.
We were just talking about him.
I'm madly in love with
this morning.
And my husband's well aware that I would leave him for Diego Luna, and I don't think he's offended by that. You know what? Sometimes you gotta, when the opportunity presents itself. Mm-hmm. With no judgment. And, Milo? I don't know how to say his last name.
Milo V.
Milo V. From This Is Us and Gilmore Girls. And
Heroes.
And Heroes.
Nobody wants that. I was watching the episode of This Is Us where he has a goatee, and I was like, oh, I don't know anymore. And then the next episode, he had the mustache, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, we're back to it.
Yes, we're back to it.
Aside from my husband, is the only person who I can stomach having a mustache.
Yeah, with not the rest of it.
With nothing else. Mm-hmm. The only person. He's beautiful.
Yeah, he is.
And America Ferrera.
We talk about her all the time, too. Her new hair looks so good.
Oh, it's so cute.
I love it.
It's so cute. I love Superstore. I watched the most recent episode with Bud, who we've talked about before. He's our friend.
My roommate.
Bree's roommate. And Matt.
Is your husband?
Who I've mentioned like 4 times already.
And my husband, Matt.
My husband. I feel like I say my husband a lot, and I'm not trying to be gross. I just want to clarify that this is, like, I just want people to know why I'm talking about this person.
There's so many people named Matt that it's
pretty generic.
Not weird to clarify.
Yeah, so maybe I can call him something that's not my husband.
My boo.
Ugh, I don't know about that.
Just don't call him your hubby.
No.
Because I'll defriend you IRL.
We don't really call each other names. The only thing that we say to each other is dear.
Yes.
That's it.
You should just call him your dear.
My dear. My boss calls her boyfriend her beloved.
That's adorable.
They've been together for 30 years.
Ooh.
They don't live together,
nice.
though.
Some people don't do that. I mean, that's not as rare as you might think.
No, I mean, it works for them, obviously. He lives in San Francisco. She lives in Los Angeles. And they just go back and forth sometimes.
If it works for you, go for it.
Very patient man.
Is she listening? Now I'm scared. I'm afraid. I've never met her.
I know. I feel like everyone else has.
I'm actually really grateful that I've never met her because I like to have this little image of her in my mind. And it's kind of like Ursula, but she's like a land a land
Ursula.
But not like the pretty one that she turns to at the end of the movie when she's trying to marry Eric.
I've only seen The Little Mermaid twice. And once when I was a kid, and I was just like, I don't like this. I don't want to be a part of this. I never have to see this again.
You don't want to be a part of that world?
No. But I also just, like, wasn't a Disney kid. Ever.
Yeah.
I was definitely more of, like, a Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers kid.
Yeah.
And that didn't freak me out, but Ursula really did a number on me.
It's weird the things that we accept as children. Like, it's weird the things that we use to entertain children, and it's just like, that's... what are we doing?
I don't think that my mom knew that I was watching those movies as a kid.
Oh, I meant that we let kids watch Disney movies.
Oh, yeah.
The things that we're teaching them.
And that's okay, but... Oh, right? Okay.
Like, that to be a character with depth, you have to have a dead parent.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
Let's not go there.
There are a lot of things that we could say about Disney and Disney films, and if you are one of the people who love them, that's fine. You can love them. I love things that are problematic. Supernatural. So I get it. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, what's your fave problematic thing to watch?
Oh, my there are so many. Definitely Housewives. All of them.
Do you watch that?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't watch all of them. I watch Beverly Hills and I watch Orange County.
I didn't know that you watched those.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I watch them.
Oh.
And I love them. There are definitely times when I have to shut the TV off because it's too much for me.
Yeah.
So those shows are pretty problematic. But I don't, I just enjoy watching them and shutting my brain off. It's not like with Supernatural, I'm just like, oh, I love it, and there are so many good things about it that their shortcomings aren't necessarily okay with me, but I can get past it while I'm watching. What about you?
You know what I really love is young adult fiction.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of it is problematic. Especially ones that are geared towards young women. But, I mean, I'm okay with it because I kind of enjoy remembering what it's like to be a teen, be a young adult, and, the way that you look at the world and stuff. So, and, when you're younger, you're like, oh, my parents or older people don't remember what it's like to be my age, and I want to kind of hold on to that so that I don't become
yeah.
I mean, I'm an old, I know. I feel that way a lot of the times, but that's how I hold on to my
youth. But you
youth.
don't have to be disconnected from that feeling or from the youths.
The youths.
The youths.
Yeah. But, I mean, a lot of them have, you know how we talk about the oh, we're doing this again. Manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah.
So in young adult fiction, there's a similar archetype or trope, but for male characters, like young adult male characters, and they're quirky and offbeat and don't conform, and they're cool because they don't try to be cool. I don't know what you call that.
Just like Milo and Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Yeah. And I don't think, that's definitely a trope, but I don't know if it has a name. Let's coin a term, and then we'll be famous.
Okay.
Manic pixie dream boy.
But
they're not manic. They're brooding. Yeah, they're brooding.
Brooding.
Kind of selfish. That's the thing, is their selfishness, when you read it as an adult, you're like, this dude is selfish and self-involved, and his mysteriousness is just because he doesn't know what he's doing or what he wants, and he's a fucking mess. Yeah. And it's not cute.
It's not cute because it's always what's attractive about him.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch Gilmore Girls, I was just like, ugh, why? Because I kind of started halfway after we met Jess and Rory was dating him, and I'm like, this guy's kind of a dickhole. And then I went back and watched the whole thing, and it was just like, oh, he has a much more complicated story, and of course this is how he is. So I feel like when it's presented like that, it's okay to go through those emotions. It's never okay to treat people like shit, obviously. No. But it's just the way that it's presented in young adult fiction where it's like, oh, but love him.
Yeah. And I there was one character in there's a series called the first one is Sloppy Firsts, and then there's a series of them. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and there's a character in that I was like in love with. But I feel like if I go back and read it now, I'll be like, ugh, you know, because he was kind of at one point in one of the books, he just takes off and travels and like sends these mysterious postcards to her, and like
of course he does. But also that's not even necessarily that different from what teenage boys do. I feel like they're just as complicated as teenage girls.
Yeah, I know, but we treat teenage girls like they're so complicated and hormonal.
Yeah, they're not.
I do like the shoulder shrug that I did when I said that, because I wanted to convey that I had attitude. Can you hear that?
I can. If anyone's wondering, today I'm drinking green peach tea.
I'm drinking LA tap water.
Ooh, we actually have a really wonderful filtration system in Los Angeles. It's one of the best. I didn't know that. You know who doesn't have a great filtration system? Flint, Michigan. They don't. Yes. And we're going to talk about that.
Yes,
in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get to that.
Is that going to be in today's, or is that going to be next week's? You don't know. You have to listen to find out.
Mostly because we don't know yet. We don't know how we're going to edit this together. But we will talk about it in this series, this installment, whatever you want to call it.
We need to come up with a cool name for our double episode thing.
Yeah, because we do. That's our thing. We do a double episode. That's what
thing.
Yeah, because you can't really call it a series because it's just the two.
Mm-hmm. We'll think on it.
Yeah, we'll think. We'll take a think.
What else are we going to talk about in this dual epidual
episode? I'm going to talk about Miss Major.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to talk about?
I'm excited to hear about Miss Major. I know a little bit, but I'd love to learn more.
I'll get to her. I almost went into it right now, but we'll get to her.
This month, not right now because we're recording this in the past, but this month, of course, is Women's History Month, which is really exciting and important in these dark Handmaid's Tale times. We're not there yet.
Ladies, if you haven't read The Handmaid's Tale, or Handmaid's Tale, you need to.
Mm-hmm. But it's something that's really important for us to celebrate.
Yeah.
Not celebrate. I mean, it's a
I
time.
think honor.
Mm-hmm.
Honors.
It's a time to talk about lady heroes and women that have made a difference and have contributed to the advancement of women in many different ways. And since this is SheSplain, we want to highlight and put a spotlight on some of the women that are lesser known and maybe some people don't know about. Maybe you do. Maybe you learn something new.
I feel like these are women who are known in a lot of communities, but they're known within those communities, and they're not necessarily spotlighted. Is spotlighted a word?
Sure. They're
not
maybe
necessarily spotlighted in other communities or in mainstream media.
Yeah, or in the feminist community as a whole, which is a community of feminism. It's just I think we're all working towards like figuring out how to bring all the smaller communities together in one movement. I think that's...
And how all of these people have worked kind of for our whole.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you uplift women, you are uplifting feminism.
Yes.
And, It's regardless of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Women support women.
Women helping women.
Ladies inspire ladies.
Yeah.
Or however you identify.
It's just, feminism is about equality for everyone. And that means lifting up the people that need to be lifted up. That's not just women. But we have to, as women, be about lifting up all of the people that need it.
Yes.
If you want to be a true feminist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today.
So
You want to get into it?
I really want to do that thing that we're going to do today, which is talk about things.
We woke up early. We woke up so early today.
Caffeine.
Ooh.
Yes. I want to get into lady business.
Let's get into lady business and talk about some important people.
Yes. I hope that people learn a thing or two today, and if not, maybe that's okay too.
Yeah, if you know about every single one of these women, that's good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you. That's amazing because I didn't know about all of these women.
Yeah, every single woman that I'm going to talk about, and I think almost all the ones that you're talking about, I didn't know about until recently. So my first person that I want to talk about is a woman that I just found out about because there was a Google Doodle on her birthday this year.
Oh, I love Google Doodle. You can learn so much from it.
Yeah.
I check it every day.
It's great because I think they make an effort to highlight people that aren't as well known.
Mm-hmm.
They don't always go for the obvious.
I wonder what they're going to do for Women's History Month.
Oh, I bet they'll come out with some good stuff.
I bet they will.
Yeah. So I learned about her from her Google Doodle this year. It was on her birthday. I'm kind of obsessed with her now. And I know that there are people that know about her, but I had never heard of her or her incredible accomplishments before. And she's a pilot. She was a pilot. And the only female pilot I had ever heard of was Amelia Earhart in history. So I'm kind of angry that I've never heard of her.
I've never heard of her either. Had heard of Amelia, but I feel like Amelia is maybe only famous because of the controversy around her and her life and her death.
Yeah. Yeah, and the mystery.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting to people.
Yeah.
I really don't think we would know who she was if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, well...
But also, she was a white lady, so
yes.
maybe we would have. I don't know.
Well, Bessie Coleman, who we're going to talk about, was not a white lady. She was actually the first licensed African-American female pilot. She was licensed in 1921, and also the first woman of Native American descent. As a black woman in America, she was rejected from all of the American aviation schools. They wouldn't take her. And I mean, even at the time, this was like the late 1910s, just women in general, and forget it if you're a woman of color, trying to do something that was a really new industry. So, of course, it was dominated by white men. And still is today, of course. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Today, more than 90% of pilots in the U.S. are white, and only 1 in 5,623 pilots are women.
I had a lady pilot on one of my flights home to Michigan.
Yeah?
And she was waiting, because they, stand there when you're getting off your flight. And normally I just, ignore the pilot, but I saw it was her, and I fist bumped her. I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. I was just so excited. I was like, yeah,
that's so cool.
Get it. And she laughed and she fist bumped me back.
That's really awesome.
I was excited.
Somebody texted me. They were like, I had a lady pilot. It wasn't you, but somebody was like, I had a lady pilot on my flight, And I was like, that's so cool. But I like that people, like, that's something that someone would text me about because they think I would be excited about it. Because I am.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And that someone noticed it. They're like, oh, it was a lady and it was so cool. So, yeah, it's still an industry that's really dominated by white men, just, like, really disproportionately.
Especially if I, like, ignore almost every single pilot that I walk by. You see, like, one lady pilot and you get, like, super excited. That says a lot.
I don't imagine it's easy to be a woman in that profession.
It's very similar to being a woman in any type of profession or where you don't see a lot of, like, in the army or a police officer or a firefighter.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, she was rejected from all the American aviation schools, so she just, like, busted her ass. She got a job at a chili parlor during the day.
Oh, I thought you were going to say chili. And I was like, Chili's hasn't been around that long, has it?
So she got a job at the Chili's, the local Chili's.
We've all been there.
So she got a job at a chili parlor, and she taught herself French at night. She learned French, and then after she had enough, she withdrew all her savings that she had accumulated, went to Paris, and she was the only non-Caucasian in her class in 1920 at the aviation school in Paris. And it took her about 7 months before she graduated. Then she came back to the U.S. and she became a very popular stunt pilot. And she performed at air shows.
Oh, that's really cool.
All around the country. And she refused to perform at venues that wouldn't admit people of color.
Good for her.
She was this amazing champion of other people of color, and she had such a passion for flying, and she wanted other African Americans to see her. Like, it was really important for them to see her, and as we know from representation in media, it's important for people to see people that look like them so that they can see examples and say, oh, that's something that I can do.
Yeah.
And she had a dream of opening an aviation school for African Americans. The tragedy is that she didn't live long enough to do that. She actually died really young, tragically, at the age of 34 in an accident during a rehearsal for one of the air shows.
Oh.
It was an equipment failure.
Yeah.
Incredibly sad. But she was just so amazing. Like, she has been honored in a lot of ways since her death. For a number of years after her death, black pilots from Chicago would do an annual flyover her grave.
Oh.
Which is really great. I don't know if they still do it.
That's really sweet.
She didn't get to open her school, but she does have a women's aviator club named after her. It's a group of African American women. It's called the Bessie Coleman Aviators Club. So that's really cool. That was founded in 1977 in her honor.
That is really cool.
And she did have a stamp in 1992.
Ooh.
I think she's so cool. I think it's really important to acknowledge how much prejudice she had to push through to become a pilot like she did, especially a stunt pilot. And one of the things that she's quoted as saying is, "The air is the only place free from prejudice."
Oh.
And I really like that.
I like that too.
As I was saying earlier, it was really important for her, for other people of color to see themselves in someone in this kind of profession. She said, "I knew we had no aviators, neither men or women, and I knew the race needed to be represented along this most important line, so I thought it was my duty to risk my life to learn aviation and to encourage flying among men and women of our race who are so far behind the white race in this modern study." And at the time, aviation was a real risk. Like, she did risk her life. Like, even when she was training, one of her fellow students died in the training.
Oh.
So she knew that it was a risky career, but it was so important to her. And
Especially then.
Yeah.
Aviation was quite new.
So new. I just think she's so amazing. And why isn't there a biopic movie about her?
I can name a lot of reasons, but I feel like we talk about these all the time.
I know.
Because Hollywood.
But finding out about her, I'm just so inspired. I mean, I'm not going to go out and become a pilot.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to learn French either because I've tried and I just don't have it.
No,
but that's impressive.
It's so great, like, to hear a story of a woman that was told over and over again, you can't do this. And then she said, no, you're wrong. And found a way to do it. And that is bold.
Yeah, that is bold.
Mm-hmm.
I'm inspired by her. I didn't know that much about her. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I love her.
And I learned something new today.
Yay! Okay, podcast over.
We're done. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make my nephew listen to this episode. He'll probably just tell me to listen to it, and then in a year when I quiz him on it, he's going to be like, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But speaking of aviation, I live by the Burbank Airport.
Yeah.
You can definitely hear.
I think you mean our fancy recording studios by the Burbank Airport.
Whoops. Our fancy, beautiful, high-tech, cutting-edge
podcast
recording studio is located near Bob Hope Airport.
We're going to leave this in because it's a plane.
Why is it named Bob Hope Airport?
He probably money.
Oh. He donated an airport?
I don't know.
I mean, good for you, Bob Hope.
He's dead, right?
I'm going to say yes. If he's not dead, he's probably really close.
Yeah, I think he's dead.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go with yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's dead.
I always think people are dead that aren't dead. All the time.
I used to get Bob Hope confused with, who's the guy from The Price is Right?
He's not. Bob Barker.
Bob Barker, that son of a bitch. They are not the same people, but I used to get them confused all the time.
I just realized that I've also confused them.
Yeah, Bob Barker was gross and had a lot of sexual harassment suits against him. But he did tell everyone to spay and neuter their pets, which is very important.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah. For nothing. Today, I decided to talk about Dolores Huerta. Do you know who she is?
I know a little bit, but I am excited to learn more.
So she's a labor activist, and I know who she is because my family is obsessed with Cesar Chavez. Like, they could not be more stereotypical when it comes to that. Oh my God, my mom could go on for hours about how much she loves this man. But what's interesting about that is that Dolores worked very closely with him and doesn't get as much recognition. So she was born in New Mexico in 1930, and her father was a farm worker, and her father was also a civil rights activist. Her parents divorced when she was 3, and her mother moved her and her family to the farming town of Stockton, California. There, when she got a little older, she co-started the Stockton chapter of Community Service Organization, so CSO, and they fought for economic improvements for Latinos. And she's given a lot of responsibility there. And because of it, a lot of the men kind of like ridiculed her and, you know, definitely downgraded her abilities while she was there. Mm. And while she was working there, she met Cesar Chavez. And they realized that they had a common goal and that they had a lot in common when it came to how they felt Latinos and farm workers should be organizing. And so...
What's the time period of this?
This is like 1960s.
Okay. Yeah.
So her and Cesar Chavez met a few years before the 60s. And when they realized that, she left the CSO to work for the National Farm Workers Association. which is now the United Agriculture Workers Organization Committee. I'll talk about why that changed. And Cesar Chavez, like I said before, he's always talked about more than Dolores, like always.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily in my household, but definitely in a lot of them. And that's not saying that he wasn't important. He was important. But I feel like, you know, I asked a couple friends if they knew who she was, and they didn't know, but they definitely knew who Cesar Chavez was.
Yeah.
And what they were primarily, like their primary goal was to improve working conditions in farm fields. At the time, farmers didn't have restrooms. There was no drinking water for them, which if you've ever been in California at any point in time, it's fucking hot all the time. I mean, maybe not in the 60s. It was a little cooler. Global warming, that's real. That exists. And they were making 75 cents an hour.
What was the minimum wage at that point?
I don't know. I didn't look it up. But 75 cents an hour is not what they should have been making.
I mean, in the 60s, that's... we're still talking about...
We're still talking about they were making cents to the dollar.
Yeah.
She's also responsible for helping to organize the Delano grape boycott. Do you know what that is?
I feel like I've heard about it, but I don't really know what it is.
I think people in California know what it is because there's actually a lot of art around Los Angeles and around California that is centered around the boycott because it was such a big deal. So
did you... Oh.
No, that's okay.
What, were you with me the time we went to the museum in...
Oh, yeah.
And that was part... That's why I've heard of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of art there about it. It was really cool. What museum? Was that Southern...
Isn't it the Southern California Art Museum?
Yeah, I think so. Is that the one that's in Pasadena?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had an exhibit, and it was really good. It was like a lot of pop art and a lot of street art, which was really cool. We can
cut that out.
No, that's fine. I think we should leave it in. So the Delano grape strike was a labor strike by the Agricultural Workers Organization Committee and the United Farm Workers against grape growers in California. The strike began September 8th, 1965 and lasted for more than 5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, it lasted a long time. And I have to say that it was not started by Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. It was started by Filipino farm workers. And it was led by Philip Vera Cruz and Larry, I'm going to spell his name because I don't know exactly how to say it, Itlong. I don't know how to say his name. But it started with them. And Dolores and Cesar Chavez kind of attached themselves to it because they felt that it was important. And that was 1 week after the strike started. So they were there essentially from the beginning. And they used grassroots efforts like boycotts and marches and community organizing. And it was all nonviolent resistance. And Dolores would like go into the field and talk to farm workers, and she was arrested for it. She's been arrested 22 times in her life, and that is a direct result of being a Hispanic woman. It really has nothing to do with anything but race.
Yeah.
Because I can name many white women who have organized in protest and have never been arrested. And so that's unfortunate. But because of all of their organizing, it gained national attention, and that's when everyone not everyone, but a lot of people started to really get behind the boycott. By July 1970, the UFW had succeeded in reaching a collective bargaining agreement with table grape growers, and that affected 10,000 farm workers in California. The industry ended up signing a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the UFW, which was that was huge. And before that, in 1966, she had negotiated a contract with the Shenley Wine Company, and that was the first time that farm workers were able to effectively bargain with an agricultural enterprise. And that was in 1966. That's not a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's not a long time ago at all.
No.
That means that, I mean, I don't know exactly where my grandfather was in this point in time, but this was he could have been in Michigan by now. But he lived in California for a long time as a farm worker.
Yeah.
So this is definitely something that, like, I know because of my grandpa and through my grandpa, but it was huge. It was important, and it affected so many families, and it still affects a lot of families.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the effects of that are, very present today.
Yeah. And I don't think that a lot of people give it enough credit. Like, conditions weren't going to get any better. Nobody cared about farm workers. I mean, we barely care about them now. There was a piece of graffiti I saw one time in a Chipotle. I didn't see it. I think I probably saw it on the internet. But it was a Chipotle banner, and it was Chipotle billboard, and it was like, our tomatoes are organic, blah, blah, blah. And then someone had spray painted over the entire thing, but they're picked by slaves. Which is true. That's essentially what these workers were, because they were making no money and they had terrible working conditions. And a lot of them were getting sick from it. So that bargaining agreement was huge, and it affects people today. Not only that, but she continued to protest a lot of different things. And she worked for labor's rights for a long time until 1988. And she then, in September, she was protesting the policies and platforms of George W. Bush, who was running for president at the time. And she was doing a peaceful protest, and the police were called, and she was beaten so badly with a baton that she had to have her spleen removed, and her ribs were broken.
Oh.
And after that, she took time off to focus on other organizations, but because it was filmed, which you don't hear about a lot either. I didn't know this. I knew about her and working with farmers. I had never heard about this part of her life, but it was filmed. And so she was able to win a large settlement for San Francisco, and she used all of that for farm workers in California. So it actually started a bigger discussion about crowd control and in the city of San Francisco. So after that, she took a leave of absence, and she would travel the country on the behalf of the Feminist Majorities Feminization of Power 50-50 by year 2000 campaign. And so what that did was that encouraged Latinas to run for office.
Mm-hmm.
And that campaign actually resulted in a significant increase in the number of women representatives in local, state, and federal levels.
Yeah.
Really cool. And in 1992, she was the national chair of the 21st Century Party, or maybe that was founded in 1992. But that was based on principles that women make up 52% of the party's candidates, and the officers must reflect the ethnic diversity of the nation.
Fuck yeah.
So she's a really cool lady. I love her. Like I said, she was arrested 22 times. And she was actually there I got this off Wikipedia, so I don't know if this part's true. I honestly did not look that much into it, and it was something that I didn't know. But she was there the day that Bobby Kennedy was murdered. She was actually working closely with Bobby Kennedy, which is cool. I mean, like, the Kennedys definitely had their flaws, but they tried a little.
Yeah.
And a couple other things she did was, in 1960, she lobbied for a bill to permit people to take the California driver's license examination in Spanish, which is huge.
That's great.
Yeah. And that, like, again, that's in the 60s. That's not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
It should have already... Whatever. And then in 1962, she lobbied to repeal the Bracero program. And then in 1963, she lobbied to extend aid to families with dependent children to California farm workers. And then in 1975, she lobbied for the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act.
She was busy.
She's a busy lady. And she was an honorary co-chair of the Women's March.
Awesome.
Yeah. She's cool. She's busy. I love her.
Yeah.
My mom's going to be so happy that I talked about her.
Oh, good. Yay, Mommy.
She's going to be like, oh, good. You talked about her.
Oh, good. Good girl.
Good girl. Good girl.
Good girl.
So when I was younger, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. That's what I was going to do.
Did you do little stand-up sets in your house?
I think so. I used to do a lot of stuff like that in my house, and I had 2 uncles that I would make watch me, like, do all of my performances. Like, my uncle,
what did you
Uncle
joke
Greg
about when
and
you
Uncle
were
Bob.
little?
I think I stole other people's ads.
Like a tiny Dane Cook.
Yeah, I was stealing everything from everybody. But one of the comedy specials that I remember very vividly watching it with my mom was Margaret Cho's 1994 comedy special. Mm-hmm. And she walked out and she has like a full leather outfit on. Mm-hmm. And it's not super tacky. It's just like full leather. And she's wearing no bra. If she is wearing a bra, it's like barely there. You can see everything. And she says fuck within the first 15 seconds of her set. And I thought she was hilarious and so refreshing. Like, I remember like being surprised because she's an Asian American woman, and up until that point, the only Asian American women that I had seen were very stereotypical.
Yeah. And
I don't even need to get into that. Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And even today, that's still how it is. You see that a lot. Mm-hmm. So I remember looking at her and thinking, this is so important. Even though I was a small child, I knew that it was important for me to watch it. And I'll talk about this like a little bit later, but Asian American people and Hispanic American people have a lot of similarities when it comes to being a first or second generation immigrant, because I think our family dynamics are similar. Which was another reason why I was like, this person's amazing, because she's laughing at the exact same things that like my mom and my sister and I laugh about, and she's pointing out the exact same things that we laugh about that I couldn't necessarily get from someone else. Like Ellen DeGeneres, who's lovely and amazing and has the best stand-up specials, I didn't see that reflected back. And even though Margaret Cho is Asian and my family, they are Hispanic, it was still present, and it was still present enough for me, a 6-year-old, to understand what was happening. Yeah. And to really respond to that. And we have things in common like food and immigration. Yeah. And we make fun of our families, which I think is something that white people aren't comfortable with doing. And that's just my experience. I'm sure that there are thousands and thousands of white families out there that are like making fun of their family. You know, this is just based on my experience in my life. But I felt like I could relate to her. And it was nice. And she had a naughty mouth. And I thought that was hilarious. Like, I thought she was so funny. Because the comedians that I was watching at the time, I was watching like Sinbad and Ellen DeGeneres, and they didn't have potty mouths. And my mom doesn't. Like, my mom does not swear. But my sister, who's a lot older than me, swears all the time. And so that was just like another thing that I was like, oh, this is very similar to my family. And I just think she's really important to talk about, because even though we know who Margaret Cho is, a lot of people know who Margaret Cho is. Yeah. She is so outspoken.
Oh my God, she's so vocal. And
she is.
Even before Twitter was around.
She was. Even before all of it, she was. In 1984, she also released her sitcom, All American Girl, which was supposed to be based on her comedy. Mm-hmm. And she has said countless times that they bastardized her work. Yeah. And they used her name to get people to watch, because she was pretty popular at the time. And it had such a negative reaction to her community. It was a Korean family, and Korean people responded they felt hurt by it, I think, because it was so stereotypical, and it played on, tired storylines that they weren't something that she came up with. Yeah. And she was vocal about that. She was vocal about saying that this wasn't me. You used me, which for a woman was hard to do at the time. It's hard to do now. But for a Korean woman is 1,000 times harder to do.
It's dangerous.
It is.
For any woman to speak up in the entertainment industry, in the public eye, to speak up about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that I find so awesome about her is that I don't know if it's that, I don't think it's that she's so established in her career. I think it's just that is who she is, and she is not afraid to suffer any backlash that her career might have as a result of what she says.
Mm-hmm. She's amazing. I think because of her popularity so early in the 90s, she's had a platform that she has utilized. She is a huge supporter of women's rights. She's a huge supporter of the LGBTQ community. She's fought for same-sex marriage. She's so big on body positivity, mm-hmm. which is really important in her culture. And she's talked about how that's important in her culture. And she was a rape victim. She suffered from an eating disorder because of it. And she was an alcoholic and drug abuser because of it. And she's been so open and honest about it. And I think she was married before. And I remember watching interviews, and she would openly talk about how she was I think she was in a polyamorous relationship with her husband.
Yeah.
And she was open about it, and she was okay with it. And she didn't care if the person interviewing her was uncomfortable or not, because it was her story, and that was her life, and it was okay.
Yeah.
I really respect her. She released a book that I love, and it's called I'm the One That I Want. And it's about her experience in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think everyone should read it, because
I'm going to go out and buy it today.
Go buy it. And then she has one that I haven't read, and that's called I Have Chosen to Stay and Fight. And that's about politics and human rights. So I think I'm going to read that soon. I should read that. I should pick that up.
Awesome.
Another thing I didn't know about her, which is really cool, was she's on the board of directors for Good Vibrations, mm-hmm. which is a sex toy company that promotes feminism and sexual experimentation.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's amazing how, unafraid to be herself she is.
She is.
She's not an easy person to be in the public eye.
She's not. I love her. Oh, okay. So earlier we talked about shows or things that we enjoy that are problematic.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Fresh Off the Boat. Mm-hmm. And while it has, I feel, being a white woman who has no opinion on this, I feel that it has gotten much better since the first season. It definitely did not take from Eddie Wong and his story. His intention with the show was to have kind of like a Married with Children vibe, and it's not that. And even though the similarities between Fresh Off the Boat and All American Girl have been pointed out in the show itself, and while they have gone a long way to fix their storyline so that it's not just about the one kid struggling with immigrant parents and their conflicts, they have changed that dynamic. It still wasn't Eddie Wong's vision. And Margaret Cho, I guess he consulted with Margaret Cho on how to maybe kind of prevent that. And she tried, and Hollywood. I mean, I wasn't there for that conversation, so I can't say exactly what it was, but she's pretty vocal about that too. I do like Fresh Off the Boat. I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I love Constance Wu. I'm going to marry that woman.
Speaking of women that are outspoken, despite the fact that it might harm their career in some way, she's very outspoken.
Yeah, she is.
In a fantastic way.
I'm serious. I'm going to marry her.